So I'm just kind of sorting through my pepper plants this morning. I've got them in these two big totes, and they're each in a little square pot. But different varieties of peppers grow at different rates. So I've got some that are naturally already taller, and they're starting to shade out some of the shorter ones. So I'm just sorting short and tall, and I'm just gonna separate them. Topping peppers kind of reminds me of those clickbait videos where the person in the thumbnail is like holding scissors on something like, I'm gonna cut it, my hair, you know, except in this case, we're gonna do it. All right, let's unpack that a little bit, because when I was a new gardener, I felt really traumatized by doing this. And every year I would look it up and be like, should I do it? I mean, I know I should do it, but like, should I do it? I talk to friends and customers about stuff like this all the time, but it's so hard to explain, and I'm always like, I wish I could just show you on my own plants, and next year I'll try to take some pictures and videos, but spring is so busy that I never get around to it, so that's why you get these weird videos of me rambling about plants, because that's what I have time to do, and I'm trying my best. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's also fine. Topping a plant is when you take a plant that just has one central leader going up like this, the way it does naturally, or this one, and then you cut it off, usually when the plant is about 6 to 8 inches high, and you leave maybe 4 or 5 leaves on the plant. And then this one I cut a while ago, so it's already growing in. I cut it right there is the little wound, and out of that cut came 2 beautiful stems. So this is going to give us a bushier plant that bears more fruit in most cases. There are a few caveats. Topping your plants is not required. You'll have a perfectly good harvest if you don't do this. It's just personal preference, and I do it with some varieties and not with others. Your plant will still bush out if you don't do this. Like on this one, if I didn't cut it, it still has these side shoots coming out like those, but it's putting a lot more energy into going straight up. So these might be a little wimpier, whereas since we cut off that top part, this one is like, oh my gosh, we got to put all that energy into going up. And so those top 2 instead of 1 are getting, you know, all the energy pushed into it. And the typical advice is to top your hot peppers and small peppers and even some medium-sized peppers, but to not top your big sweet bell peppers. This is because little hot pepper plants produce like crazy. Like you might get like, you know, 50, 100, 200, I don't even know, peppers off of a single plant. But a bell pepper, you know, you might get 2 or 10 or 15, or it just depends on the variety and stuff, but it's a lot less. I really like to experiment with my plants though. So like this Ruby King variety is a big red bell pepper. I typically do not top it, so I'm gonna leave this gorgeous specimen. But this one, also a Ruby King, has actually self-topped, which they do sometimes. As you can see here, I never cut that. There's no little like, so it'll be fun to see the difference between the different Ruby King plants and how they produce. And I also topped like half of my sweet orange bell pepper plants just to experiment, so we'll find out. But something like this Jimmy Nardello, I don't even think twice. I just do it. All right, I tried to make a little timeline with my plants to make you feel better. So I understand it's hard to take your plant that looks gorgeous like this and do this to it. So this is that Jimmy Nardello that I just cut. It's got side shoots starting to come out, and that is what is gonna, gosh, my hands are shaky. That is what is gonna get all that energy and start coming up now. Next in my little timeline is this Round of Hungry variety, and I had cut this just a little bit ago So you can see it's coming in a little bit more than the Jimmy. This is like, you know, I don't know, a week or so after cutting it. And this one too, I might have cut this on the same day. I'm not sure. Different varieties grow at different rates, but you can just see very quickly it starts coming back out. This one must have been from the first round of cutting that I did because it is really grown in. Let me see. You can see right here is the cut, and these two are the side shoots that then became the two main leaders. And this one over here is really coming in. It's got a little bit of a thinner stem, but I think that's just how this variety is. It was like that last year too. But it has all sorts of leaders coming up, and this is like a small bell pepper, like those ones that you get in the bag at the grocery store that are red and orange and yellow. I'm obsessed with them, and I will snack off this plant constantly. I found an even better example because they're both Jimmy Nardellos. So this is the one we just cut today, looking really sad. And this is also a Jimmy Nardello that I cut probably 2 weeks ago. So definitely do it because you can already tell that this is going to be a good plant. Those are the top two, like, growth terminal buds or whatever. And they're going to get huge. You know, they'll both get as big as these ones that have one right now. So I've grown Jimmy for years and I've always topped it. Now I'm going to try and hold my phone and cut plants at the same time. So for this one, I got this variety from a friend, and most people just, I don't know, don't top their plants. So I'm gonna do it now. So let's see. We're gonna go up maybe to like here. Can you see? It's not focused. Okay. I felt like it wasn't focused. But there we go. We're gonna make that cut right on top, or right above these little you know, I call them crotches because a customer or somebody one time told me that they call, like, tomato suckers, they say that they grow out of the crotch of the branch connecting to the stem, and it just stuck in my head forever. So there are already teeny tiny little babies coming out of those little crotches, and it's gonna be great. There's probably a better term, like maybe node or something, but you're gonna remember crotch. All right, this one, I'm gonna cut this like kind of weird on purpose. Okay, I think I did a bad job because it's really hard to film and do this. Yeah, I cut off an extra leaf. That's okay. So I cut it like kind of as high as I could, like not right above the, I don't know. I can't even really show what I was trying to show because it wasn't long enough, but if you cut it like, you know, way up, you're just gonna have like a stump. So you might as well just cut it as close to the node or crotch as possible so that you just have this little bump and not like a whole stick sticking up here, because nothing's gonna grow out of that stick. So it's kind of for aesthetics, I guess. This particular plant is a little bit weaker, or like more spindly, I guess, than the others. My friend gave me these all in one pot and I separated them. So there's always one that's the weak one. So I want to leave as many leaves on this one as possible. Oh gosh. So I'm going to get in there right at the very top and just cut off just the very, very tip, because it probably needs those leaves to strengthen up. I should probably get a phone tripod or something because it's really hard to hold this. But something else I like to do is if I see little buds, those are gonna flower and turn into peppers. If I see little buds like that on my plants when they're still in their pots like this, I go in and I cut them off. You don't have to use scissors. I usually just use my fingers, but here's a few more up here, like right there. I'm just gonna pull that off because I don't want this plant to be focusing on making peppers right now. I want it to be focusing on growing roots because I bet it hasn't fully filled out this container yet with roots. So we're gonna direct its energy into growing roots and leaves and not peppers yet, especially a variety like this that I know produces tons and tons of peppers. So if I pick off a few buds right now, I'm not really sacrificing anything. People get so weird about bell peppers because, you know, if you tend to only get a couple of peppers off your bell pepper plant, I understand not wanting to pick the buds, but I just kind of don't really worry about it. Like when I grow them in the ground, I get enough off of them that I think picking the buds off at the beginning is still a good thing to do. I think about at the garden center where if we have a plant that's like, you know, this size, still kind of small, but somehow it has like a big honkin' bell pepper already started on it, like this puny plant supporting this big old pepper, it'll sell every time. People gravitate to it and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the earliest one. It's gonna have peppers before anybody else because look at it, it already has one. In my opinion though, that spindly plant with the big pepper on it at the garden center is not the one that you want, because I think of that plant as the one that's kind of panicking. It's like, I really want to get out of this tiny pot and I really need to reproduce so that I can pass on my seed. So I need to make this fruit as fast as possible and not really focus on roots because I feel like I'm dying. So I hope you personify your plants like I do. When you're shopping for plants, you'd be way better off to get the one that doesn't have peppers on it yet, but is super dark green and looks really healthy and isn't too tall and leggy and has a nice stout stem. I think you can see the difference, sort of. Like this guy is way stronger than that one. I would pick this. Pick the strong plant. And honestly, as long as you're careful when you're at a nursery, you can pull the plant out of the pot, like, you know, lift it up and look at the roots and see, you know, does this bell pepper plant that has a giant pepper on it, when you pull it out of the pot, does it even have roots? Or is it just making that pepper and that's it? You want to get something that's well rooted because that's going to give you a better harvest in the long run. And I mean, that's the point, right? Alrighty, well, if you actually just listened to me talk about peppers forever, then thank you, and I hope you have a good day. And here's my baby tomatoes too. They're pretty tiny. I started them kind of late, but anyway, yay!